Question number 6 on this occasion, Metiria Turei.
Tēnā koe, Mr Speaker. Tēnā koutou e te whare. My question is to the Minister for Economic Development and asks, will the Government sign the legal contract between it and SkyCity for the SkyCity Convention Centre this week? If not, when will it sign that agreement?
Honourable Stephen Joyce.
Mr Speaker, I'm advised that negotiations for the final agreement are progressing with SkyCity, and while they are, it would not be helpful or appropriate for me to discuss the nature and progress of negotiations until such a final agreement has been finalised. The heads of agreement anticipate that a final agreement will be signed on or before 14th of June 2013. However, both sides may agree to extend this to a later date, and depending on how things progress this week, we may or may not do so.
Supplementary question, Metiria Turei.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Does the Minister agree with leading constitutional lawyer Stephen Franks that signing this agreement is, quote, arguably unlawful, and if not, why not?
Honourable Stephen Joyce.
Mr Speaker, no, I don't necessarily agree with everything in Mr Franks' publicised opinion, because Mr Franks makes although there's some things that I do agree with. For example, he states that this sort of law is not unprecedented in New Zealand practice. Recent examples include the Rugby World Cup 2011 Empowering Act 2010 and qualified exemptions from certain provisions of the Commerce Act 1986 for Fonterra under the Dairy Industry Restructuring Act 2001. So I think he sort of he suggested it's arguable, but then goes on to state some examples.
Supplementary question, Metiria Turei.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Did the Minister seek any specific advice on the implications of the decision of Fitzgerald and Muldoon before signing the heads of agreement, and if so, what was that advice?
Honourable Stephen Joyce.
Mr Speaker, no, I didn't.
Supplementary question, Metiria Turei.
Has the Minister sought advice on the Bill of Rights implications of signing a deal to amend the Gambling Act 2003 before there is legislation before the House to do so, and if so, what was that advice?
Honourable Stephen Joyce, do you want the question repeated? Could the member please repeat the question?
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Has the Minister sought advice on the Bill of Rights implications of signing a deal to amend the Gambling Act 2003 before there is legislation before the House to do so? And if so, what was that advice?
Honourable Stephen Joyce.
Mr Speaker, no, I haven't, but I'd point out to the member in many examples of legislation that they go on to be then put before the House, for example, of an agreement. So you could just take, for example, treaty settlements with the Treaty of Waitangi, and also international trade agreements, where agreements are signed and then put before the House for the House to consider and decide whether to endorse those agreements.
Point of order, Metiria Turei.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Sir, I take personal offence at the comparison of a treaty settlement that provides for the rightful compensation to iwi and hapu with this dirty deal.
Order. No, that's not reasonable to take offence at that answer given by the Minister. Supplementary question, Metiria Turei.
Can the Select Committee...
Order.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Could a Select Committee amend the concessions in the intended legislation concerning this deal without affecting the contract and triggering a compensation requirement?
Again, we're having trouble hearing them. Can the member actually speak directly into her mic?
Turn it around.
That would help, I'm sure.
Thank you, Mr Speaker.
Order.
Could a Select Committee amend the concessions in the intended bill concerning this deal without affecting the contract and triggering compensation?
Honourable Stephen Joyce.
Mr Speaker, the intention is, and I stress again that this matter has not been brought before the House in any way yet, but the intention is that the bill that comes before the House would seek the House's endorsement in terms of the agreement. So obviously no compensation would apply if a Select Committee and then the House subsequently rejected the terms of that agreement. That's where the House will have the opportunity to assess whether it decides to proceed with the legislation that would give effect to the agreement.
Supplementary question, Metiria Turei.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Will SkyCity be entitled to any compensation if the legislation enacting the Gambling Act concessions does not pass? And is he concerned that the future of this whole deal relies on two MPs who are teetering on the edge of political oblivion?
Honourable Stephen Joyce, in as much as he's responsible.
Well, Mr Speaker, I think the point the member sort of seeks to raise is that, yes, are we dependent on Parliament? And the answer is yes. Governments are always dependent on Parliament in terms of passing legislation, so I don't think this is anything new. But if the Greens decided to move in favour of supporting jobs and growth in the New Zealand economy, which I know would be rare, I'd welcome their support as well.
Supplementary question, Metiria Turei.
Will SkyCity get compensation if his government fails to get the numbers to pass this duty deal?
Honourable Stephen Joyce.
Mr Speaker, I have no idea what dirty deal the member is referring to. As far as I'm concerned, the member is trying to offer a characterisation which probably applies much more to a Green Party policy than to National Party policy.
Point of order.
Point of order, Metiria Turei.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I have in fact asked this question twice now. Neither of those times did the Minister answer it. I was very specific in my final question. Will SkyCity get compensation if the legislation doesn't pass? That was not answered.
If the member wanted that answer, she should have asked it without the political implications. Question number 7, Jamie. Point of order, Right Honourable Winston Peters.
Speaker, I seek to table a OECD document which totally refutes the claim by Mr English at supplementary question 3 that New Zealand's growth rate is the highest in the OECD. It's just plain false.
Leaver sought to table the OECD document, which I'll take it is not readily available to members. On that basis, I'll put the leavers for any objection to it being tabled. There is none. It will be tabled. Question number 7, Jamie Lee Ross.
Mr Speaker, my question is to the Minister